Hi everybody, it's me, Shadow Boy, and today I'm going to be doing a book review of Secrets of East Anglian Magic by Nigel Pennick. And let me start off by saying, first and foremost, this book, for years I have wanted to buy this book, for years I've wanted to read this book, but you know how sometimes you just never get around to doing something? It's kind of been like that with this book. This book has kind of intrigued me because the impression that I've got about this book initially when I saw it online was that it was a book on East Anglian folk magic, and East Anglia and Essex are neighbours, and so there are a lot of traditions of East Anglia and Essex that just cross over, and Essex folk magic really intrigues me, so I was really interested to see this book and to read this book. So one of the things I want to start off by saying is, first and foremost, this book on the blurb calls itself a rich source book for talismanic magic, charms against evil, household and animal magic, folk recipes, ceremonies of protection, curative spells and recipes. Which is not a lie in itself. It gives the impression that this is a book on East Anglian folk magic, which isn't a lie. It is a book of East Anglian folk magic. However, one of the things I did kind of get the impression of is that it would be a little bit more anthropological in a sense of, or more historical in a sense. Historical is actually a better word. It kind of gave the impression that it was a book on historical folk magic, which some of it is, but there is a lot of stuff in there that are modern things that the author does. Now that's absolutely fine, but one of the things I think I would have kind of enjoyed is that for the author to say, look, this is kind of some of the stuff I do based on older stuff, and that's fine, that's perfectly okay. But I kind of think that little bit of an explanation would have been good at the beginning, because it does, sometimes if people aren't clued on history, the mix between the modern and the old can really get a bit jumbled, and that's kind of a boo-boo that I have with this book. The other thing that I have in regards to this is the references. There are, in this book, there are references at the back, but one of the things I enjoy with a lot of books is where they will give a statement, a historical statement, and then it will be referenced with numbers, and you will go down to the page and it will say, this is taken from X, X, and X by X at this date, at this place. And I really enjoy that because then I can actually go and research more into that. But that wasn't here. There were a couple of bold statements made in the book that did make me raise my eyebrows and make me think, but at the same time, one of the things I will say is I thoroughly enjoyed this book in terms of somebody's personal practice, because I think one of the things for somebody to open up about their personal practice, about the tradition that they do, really takes a lot. I work so secretly. I work so secret. The stuff that I do, most people won't know. Like, my closest friends won't know the stuff that I do because I work so secretive. And I think for somebody to say, this is what I do in a book, you know what? Hats off to them, because I think it takes a lot for somebody to do that. The other thing I think is useful as well is that quite often a lot of people within folk magic will kind of be like, oh right, there's all these, older folk magic that I've been researching and looking into, but how can I put that into a modern context? How can I put that in terms of my own personal practice now? Read this book, because this book is fantastic for that. And that's one of the things I will say. It was absolutely refreshing and fantastic for somebody to have a look at these folk charms and folk magic from East Anglia and then apply it in a modern sense. And as the author says, that the nameless art, he doesn't call it witchcraft, he calls it the nameless art, which was something I really genuinely enjoyed, is ever going, is ever changing, and that's, to pigeonhole something and constantly only look back at references and keep it rigid with fear of progress, and progress is how something moves on. So there were some very interesting points made, particularly at the beginning. I'll see if I'm not going to have time. I'm going to pause the video and read out some of the things he said. Found it. Okay, so it says the idea that there must be a proper original somewhere is a fallacy that originated in the literary tradition, where there is usually a definitive original text of anything framed in language. But in the nameless art, this cannot be so. When any magical act is performed, each practitioner essentially recreates it anew each time she or he does it. This magical performance is not the reenactment of a previously determined text or script, but a fresh event, newly brought into being by the magician, here and now. It is a new rendering, a new creation, which is not a mere repetition of the past, but a restatement of the essential archetype. And I genuinely enjoyed that. I enjoyed that he said that, and it was quite interesting. The other things I enjoyed within this book is there is a section on a magical household, and I really enjoyed that. There is also talking about some of the paraphernalia and areas of like the personal paraphernalia of the nameless art. So, for instance, the spirit flail, which is a bramble switch stick of 13 sticks. Within this, you kind of wave it around and make whipping things, and whereas over in the Cornish, kind of area, they will burn it and use it and still do the kind of quite aggressive movements to get rid of negative energy, to get rid of bad spirits, to get rid of any negative things. So yes, it was genuinely quite fascinating to read into how somebody else practices, and I think, you know what, hats off to the author. And I really enjoyed, one of the things I really enjoyed is how I enjoyed the part on the magical household, because I think in terms of folk magic, the house and remnants found within the house really is quite a big part of historical folk magic. We know a lot about some acts of folk magic because there's been stuff found within the household or just outside the household. So for him to kind of go over that, I think was quite refreshing and quite nice, because I don't think enough people go over about the magical household. There was also a really interesting bit of information I found out, that there's a well. There was a well in a place called Chadwell Heath, which is around the corner from where I originally come from. And Chadwell Heath, it was St Chad's Well, which is what Chadwell Heath is named after. There used to be a well, but apparently it got destroyed. When I go back to my parents though, I'm gonna kind of ask my mum to be like, can we drive around Chadwell Heath just so I can see? Because apparently the well was used as curative powers for eye conditions and eye complaints. So I kind of read this and was like, ooh, and done like a big Google, and so yeah, I did learn off this book, and particularly about the area that I'm originally from. It was quite refreshing to learn about that. What else about this book can I talk about? Yes, he touched up on the Horseman's Word and the Toad Bone Riot, and also secret societies such as Bones Men. And it was very interesting. There were some stories there as well, old stories about witch lore, which to me personally, I feel if you want to learn about witchcraft, there is, first and foremost, I would say, physically going out and doing it, getting yourself out there and doing it, but also learning about old stories, particularly within folkloric witchcraft and traditional witchcraft, learning about the old stories about the witches and the cunning folk of times gone past. Really, I think you will get an idea, and you will learn more about them in terms of the older stories and how people approach that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and I think for anybody who's wanting to learn how to apply folk magic in a modern context, I think this book is fantastic for. I also want to say this book is very dual-faithed, and that's one of the other things that I was like, ooh, I really enjoyed. It was very different from other books on witchcraft that I have read. It was very different. So I would give this book a go. I would definitely read this book because there were some things I learned about it, and it was a very unique book. I would definitely say that. I haven't read other books about traditional based witchcraft such as this. because it was different. It was kind of quirky in a way, and I enjoyed it. To the point where how the author finishes spells, the approach of deity and godhead and the kind of hierarchy that is approached in that, working with saints, working with gods, working with spirits. That bit was refreshing. But there was some elements in here that was more religious, ritualistic witchcraft rather than operative witchcraft as well. And I think that's one of the other things with this book, that there are some stuff in it that is ritualistic. There is more stuff in this book that is operative, but there is also stuff in it that is ritualistic. And for me, I thought that it would be a book purely on operative magic. So yes, Secrets of East Anglian Magic by Nigel Pennick. Give it a read. It's really interesting. It's very fascinating. There are some very interesting perspectives. Whether or not you think they're right or you don't think they're right, I think this is a good book in the sense that somebody is opening up about the practice that they do personally. I just kind of feel like that should have been said. But it is fantastic for somebody to do that and to open up about that. And I genuinely enjoyed reading this book. So over and out, and I hope you enjoyed this book review. Peace. Oh, also, before I go, I want to let you guys know that I am also, at the moment, I am on Instagram, and I've kind of just converted to it, Morley, from Facebook, so I'm like an Insta whore, which is fun. But Facebook for me at the minute is whether or not they are right or wrong. There is so many opinions at the moment. And it kind of feels like I open Facebook up and there's it's like a constant sea of opinions and ego, and it gets very tiring after a while and quite exhausting to read constant opinions. And for me, I've been finding that I've been leaving Facebook quite frustrated with some of the opinions, and also I just find it a little bit just a bit exhausting, whether or not they're opinions that are right or wrong, and they will maybe opinions on things that are genuinely important at the moment globally, but it's been getting a bit too much for me. So I kind of took a bit of a step back from Facebook. I've still got my Shadow Boy page and I'll still post on that. But on Instagram, I am GeorgieBoy333. So, have a look. It is my personal Instagram, so it's not just things on witchcraft. There's some gym stuff there as well. I may put some dancey stuff there as well, and also witchcraft stuff. So yeah, give me a shout. And I haven't forgot about the video about the bog art and Folklore Friday. Do not worry, that will be coming. There is a lot of information about the bog art in Manchester, which is pretty cool. So yes, it's probably going to be a long ass video. But over and out. Peace, and I hope you enjoyed this book review. Take care, guys.